Hello everyone, and thank you for dropping by. Today on Casual Magic, we're going to be going over Mardue Lifelink, a mid-range Mardue deck that I put together recently. What we're going to do first is go ahead and thank MTG Fnatic for allowing me to use their site, as well as to use their application and to promote my deck through this. Alright guys, with that out of the way, we're going to go ahead and start into the deck. The first card we have today, as you see on the screen, is Brutal Horde Chief. This guy literally makes this deck mid-range. This guy allows you to build up your board and actually get value out of it. There's been many a time that I've won the game with his first ability. Now, the second ability is where this guy gets interesting. 3 colorless and 2 hybrid red or white mana. Creatures your opponent control block this turn if able, and you choose how those creatures block. This isn't always a used ability, but I will say when you do have the opportunity that it can actually get way out of hand. Especially when your opponent's down to 4 or 5 life and you have 3 or 4 creatures. I mean, it normally does dictate the game at that point. The second card we have is going to be Butcher of the Horde. Butcher of the Horde is a 4-drop 5/4 flyer with a upside. The sacrifice outlet really does make him a utility card. I mean, once we get into the sideboard, it'll make a little more sense. But at this point, I mean, even sacking the Seeker of the Way if he's not doing anything can give him lifelink or even vigilance, and those two things can be the difference between a win and a loss. The next card we have up is 4 of Crackling Doom. This card is your utility removal. This gets around hexproof, this gets around protection from colors. This is awesome. The only card that I can think that this doesn't get around is the 2-drop 2/1 from, I think it was Journey into Nyx, that gives your opponent hexproof. However, anything past that, this card is just gravy. The 2 damage is nothing but sprinkles on top. Next card we got, guys, is 2 of Mardue Ascendancy. Again, Mardue banner colors for the cost, and then this is kind of like our little goblin generator. Most games you'll get it out and you'll get 2 or 3 goblins out of it. If nothing else, I mean, you can take out their Elvish Mystic or something of that nature just by, kind of forcing them into that position. The second ability of this card is really where it shines, because giving the creatures +0/+3 really interacts with the later card in the deck and actually keeps our creatures alive, which is just bonkers. You guys will see in a minute. The next card we got is 2 of Storm Solemn Visitor. This walker makes this deck truly lifelink. We have a couple cards in here that definitely help with that, but this gives literally every creature on our board +1/+0 and lifelink until the end of our next turn, which this goes through and literally changes the meta of your game. If nothing else, you can go ahead and neg 2 him for the 2/2 Vampire, which gives you a 2/2 flyer. I found that against a lot of control decks, that's actually the value route with him, because if you can't cast anything but your walker, it kind of gets a little bit hectic for him when you're producing 2 to 3 2/2s with 1 card. The next card we have here is Anger of the Gods. This is your utility removal for mono red. Any small aggro deck can get out of hand against this deck. We are a mid-range deck. We are not meant to go super fast. This card will slow down any opponent. Mixed with a couple of the other cards, this card will become very bonkers. You guys will see yet again in just a minute. Next card we got is 2 of Crater's Claws. This card is literally just utility at this point. I mean, you can cast it turn 2, kill an Elvish Mystic, give your, one of your prowess creatures, which you guys will see in a minute, prowess, or what I'll save it till turn 6 or 7 and just finish them off. It's definitely a great card, and especially with the additional +2 if you have a creature with 4 or greater, it makes your Butcher of the Horde just so much more valuable at that point. Because trust me, casting 2 for 4 damage is just always a good day. The next one we got is Monastery Swiftspear. Like I said, prowess creatures are bread and butter. Monastery Swiftspear is just good. I think everybody at this point knows that Monastery Swiftspear is kind of where you want to be with the deck. And so that's all I really have to say about her. The next card we have is another one of those just kind of like bread and butter cards. There's no downside. It's Thunderbreak Regent. He's a 4/4 flyer for 4. And whenever you even just look at him funny, this guy will burn you for 3. I found that more than not, he'll get in for about 7. They'll let you swing the first turn. They have to take care of him the second, which then deals 3 damage. I've actually, funny story, guys, I've actually had a round where I had my opponent have to target him twice and take 6 damage, and that was definitely a good turn. Alright, the next card we have here is Wild Slash. This is your utility burn spell at this point. Wild Slash is just a 1-drop. It's kind of the way you want to open up. With a couple of the other cards in the deck, it'll pad your life total a little bit as well. But in all honesty, I mean, just casting the Wild Slash on turn 1 feels good. You know, always getting to burn down something small or smash your opponent in the face. Alright. Feat of Resistance is our next card. We have 2 of these guys. Feat of Resistance is your utility protection spell. We got, at this point, as you've seen, we got a couple creatures in here that we really want to protect. And Feat of Resistance does that perfectly with allowing us to name a color and giving us protection, as well as giving us the +1/+1. This card, just bread and butter. I mean, protection is awesome. The next one we have, and a little bit of an unorthodox creature, Monastery Mentor. This guy is a 3-drop 2/2 human monk with prowess. He doesn't seem like the best card, and in all honesty, he's not great for recovering, but once you have the board stabilized, he is normally our finisher. He goes through for massive damage because he just creates all these little 1/1s. His interaction with Butcher of the Horde is also ridiculous. You cast 2 or 3 spells while he's out, you get those little guys, smash down a Butcher of the Horde, give him all 3 Vigilance, Lifelink, and Haste, and you know, those little tokens become a lot more valuable than just little 1/1s. Alright, the next card we have is Seeker of the Way. This guy, again, another card that's just proven itself throughout the standard meta at this point. He is a 2/2 for 2 with prowess, and he has lifelink whenever his prowess is activated, basically. And again, the name of the deck is Mardue lifelink, so I tried my best to jam a lot of value creatures that also gain life. This guy does it just about as good as any other creature. The next card we have, and probably the main card of the deck, this is kind of like the theme card, I suppose, is Soulfire Grandmaster. I think this will probably be the only card I go into detail about, but basically Soulfire is a 2-drop 2/2 with lifelink. Her second ability is instants and sorcery spells you control have lifelink. This makes this deck ridiculous. Anger of the Gods becomes smash all your opponents for 3 and gain infinite life. Makes Crater's Claws smash for 4, gain 4. I mean, it literally does tons of work. And then its second ability, which is 2 colorless and then 2 hybrid red or blue mana. The next time you cast an instant or sorcery spell from your hand this turn, put that card back into your hand after it resolves instead of at the graveyard. This card is ridiculous. This ability literally lets you bring back a Wild Slash and cast it again. I mean, honestly, on turn 6, I've actually done that and won the game with it. It activates Prowess with the second spell, obviously, and then, you know, it will gain you the life. So, the card literally was built to gain a lot of life and stabilize the board, and that's exactly what it does. I mean, it pads your life total to the point where, I mean, you will win a game with double or triple your life, and it also keeps, you know, smaller creatures from pinging you. I mean, most of the time you don't want to use her as a blocker, but I mean, if you have another one in hand or she's just not really doing much for you, you can always jump for her. The last card, and another just complete value card, is Valorous Stance. It's a 2-drop, and you get to choose one. Target creature gains indestructible until end turn, or you destroy target creature with 4 or greater. The second ability in Theros wasn't that great. You would normally chose the first one. However, in the Dragons of Tarkir meta, it's ridiculous. Getting to kill a Silumgar, Dramoka, I mean, just about any of those is just fantastic. And making sure that you can do it for 2 is just gravy on the stack. And so with all the cards and a little bit of explanation, basically your idea with this deck is you want to turn 1 Wild Slash or Swiftspear. Turn 1 isn't your most important turn, but having board presence or at least keeping their board free is kind of important, especially if you're against a mono red deck, which we actually do have a sideboard for this one, which we'll be going over in a second. But again, you just want to make sure that your board is stabilized and that they can't do a whole lot. The second thing you want to do is get out your Soulfires. Soulfire is huge. I mean, she literally wins the game for you. Normally, I win a game with at least 40 life. Just huge amounts of life is what you want to do. You want to deal damage and gain life. That's the name of the game. The ways that you normally are going to finish the game is with Thunder Breaks and Butchers. Flyers normally win games anyway, but when you put your opponent on a 4 or 5 turn clock, once they hit, it just makes a complete difference. So, I'm going to go ahead and actually review the sideboard real quick, guys, now that you've seen all the cards. Again, this deck actually probably has about a 50, I think it's at this point like a 58% win tile rate. I think it'll get up there a little more since I've added the sideboard to it. I revised the sideboard, and last week it had a 86% win rate to it, so I'm pretty sure it's getting better. The next card we have is Drown in Sorrow for our sideboard. This card hoses mono red decks. This card hoses token decks like Jeskai tokens and everything else. So really, when you get faced on round 2 with one of those decks, because most of the time you're not going to win round 1. If you do, you still want to board in, because these decks are much faster, and we want to make sure that we can take care of them. So 4 of Drown in Sorrow is just a must. The next card we have is 4 Heroes Downfall. This one is kind of like an opposite of that one. If you're against a, let's say an Obzan deck, this is where you want to be. Getting rid of their coursers, getting rid of their sieges, getting rid of, Dramokas, all really important. It also gets rid of any walker, as well as it goes through and stabilizes for you. Because trust me, there is nothing worse than getting hit with an Ugin and not having an answer. So yeah, that's why he comes in. The next card we're gonna have, and I'll actually go back up. You guys have seen the art for this one, but it's 2 more Anger of the Gods. Again, the mono red decks just kind of hose you. Any fast-paced deck hoses you. So having as much large board removal as you can, especially considering you have Soulfire in the deck, which will gain ridiculous amounts of life, is where you want to be. The next card we have is 2 of Hordling Outburst. This card doesn't seem great until you take into the fact that against another mid-range deck, having more creatures matters, and then Brutal Horde Chief and Butcher the Horde both contribute greatly. My favorite thing to do is go through, swing with 3, deal 3 with this, swing with the Butcher, and before anything resolves, go through, sack all 3 creatures, give him all 3 abilities, and then hit them for another 5, and then again a 6 for the 6th point, making it a total of 9 damage on 1 turn. So, I mean, the card actually gets pretty out of control. It also helps, again, if you have like a mono red deck and they just are overwhelmed with creatures, you can throw a couple in there just to stabilize your board and chump block until you can get one of your board wipes. The last card I have, and the newest inclusion, is 2 of Sarkin the Dragon Speaker. This card actually isn't seeing a whole lot of play right now. Sorry guys, give me 1 second. The computer is just being a little goofy. There we go. Sarkin Dragon Speaker. Yeah, again, sorry for that, guys. Not my computer. Sarkin the Dragon Speaker is 5-drop, 4 loyalty. But the cool thing is, his +1 makes him an indestructible 4/4. This is the coolest ability I've seen in a while. And in all honesty, this is kind of what really made the card for me. His Nick 3 is something that I normally wouldn't use. I mean, if you have to, it's a good removal. And then his Nick 6 is just it's kind of ridiculous. I mean, you get an emblem at the beginning of your turn, or your draw an additional card, and at the beginning of the end step, you discard your hand. I mean, honestly, I never use it. It's again, like I said, ridiculous. The main reason you throw this card in there is because he becomes a 4/4 indestructible, and then you get a lot of it out there, so he can just kind of take a beating. I mean, if you're really desperate, which a lot of times you will have an empty hand anyway, the Nick 6 can help. The Nick 3, again, once in a while, but in all honesty, neither of those are really where you want to be. Well, guys, this has been Casual Magic, and this has been Mardue Lifelink. Please go ahead, like, subscribe, comment, share with your friends. I appreciate all the support. You guys have a wonderful rest of your night.